Mystery Sciences. This is a series about the ancient truths, once known only to the sages, now revealed to earnest seekers to enrich and fulfill their lives. Modern man has searched the ends of the earth to rediscover the ancient art of dowsing. Join Bill Cox from the shores of the Pacific Ocean, the greatest heavenly pool of them all, on an adventure that will open your mind to your own hidden talents.
Welcome to Discover Dowsing. Hi, I'm Bill Cox. I can't tell you how pleased I am to really have you along on this instructional and entertaining video on the subject of dowsing. I'm sure you'll appreciate the step-by-step techniques given for the amateur all the way to professional use of the various instruments in this marvelous divining art.
What qualifies Bill Cox to instruct us in the ancient art of dowsing? Bill has been a professional locator and instructor since 1968, when he began his career as a protege of the dowsing master Vern L. Cameron of Lake Elsinore, California. The association continued until Mr. Cameron's death in 1970, at which time Mr. Cox devoted his life to applying the master's inventions in the field.
In 1968, I had the pleasure of knowing and working with the internationally famous dowsing master, the late Vern Cameron of Lake Elsinore, California, serving as his protege while working on 3 most revealing books on the subject of dowsing.
The purpose of this tape is to reveal techniques in the proper use of the forked switch, the wand or rod, the swing rods, the pendulum, and the original Cameron orometer.
Okay, what is dowsing? Dowsing, the word, is actually derived from an Anglo-Saxon word meaning to push down. Dowsing is also related to the ancient practice of geomancy from the Middle East. It is also connected with, in some way, the ancient practice and art of feng shui in China.
Dowsing is known as radiesthesia in France, divining in the USA, and in Canada, dowsers are known as questers. In New England, it was mistakenly called water witching, after the witch hazel plant from which the wand was cut. What is dowsing used for? Dowsing is regularly used to find underground water, to test the quality of soils in agriculture, or selection of animals for breeding purposes. One may dowse for veins of gold, silver, and other ores, lost or hidden mines. One may dowse for sunken vessels laden with gold and silver. On land, Vern Cameron successfully dowsed for treasure in the jungles of Ecuador. One may dowse from inside or outside of a vessel over water. Moreover, one can even dowse from aircraft at any altitude. One may dowse a map for ocean-going craft in trouble, capsized boats, or larger ships floundering in storms at sea. One may also dowse for schools of fish or downed aircraft. Map dowsing may be used to search for missing persons wandering among the faceless millions in the world's great cities. One may dowse for lost pets or stolen vehicles. Dowsing may be used to test the purity and quality of foods. And it's also been applied to locate trouble spots in defective machinery. Here are a few of the topics we'll cover as we go along.
You may be wondering about the history of dowsing. There are cave wall paintings that go back many thousands of years depicting some character who perhaps was locating with the means of a switch. Also, there are references to it in the Bible when Aaron struck the rock to bring forth water. There's an ancient art of rhabdomancy. There are references to this where one held or balanced a fork or a piece of wood in their hand, and it would move or turn or dip in a certain fashion when the person was over an unknown source of underground water. Many of the mines in Europe, which have been located over the last 400 years, those sites were determined beforehand by experienced dowsers, and they are still in operation today, many of them. And in the United States, there are thousands of wells that have been located on the say-so of a dowser.
Dowsing has been successfully used to pinpoint sites prior to archaeological excavations. Neither time nor the elements can obstruct the intuition of a trained dowser, who, with the aid of an instrument, may obtain information at a distance from any source about anything.
How can the hemispheres of the brain affect the body in a certain way so that the instrument will move in the hand beyond physical control? It's a very good question. Now, this is the best way I can explain it. Here we have the nervous system of the human body. It is made up of the sympathetic, active part associated with the left part of the brain and the parasympathetic or passive side, which is associated with the intuitional side of the brain. Now, how to get these two together to make the instrument move? The best way I can explain it is this: that we decide on the question, what we're looking for, and frame that clearly in the mind, make the visual image of it, and then set the pattern in here, the program as it were, like we would a computer, and then transfer it over into the intuitive passive side and let it gestate there. Let it work. When the information is forthcoming from this side, it will come back over from and activate the nervous system in such a way that the instrument will move because of the energies moving through the body, down the arm and the hand and into the instrument, causing it to move in certain fashion according to a prearranged code. A certain movement of the instrument will indicate an answer that is coming from the incomprehensible intuitive side of the mind, which seems incomprehensible to the intellectual left brain, to the active side. Now, what we do, we develop a yes and no answer, or don't know, maybe, possibly, question unclear, uncertain movement of the instrument. We have a number code, we have an alphabet code, we have different ways of developing a language between these two. What we do, we set the program with the intellectual side, decide on the question, the quest of what we're looking for. Where is this thing, what is it, and what are we going to do about it? Once we lock that firmly in, clearly, we release it to the powers of the intuitive side, which has access to information and knowledge in a vast arena of life that we know little about. And something in the left side, intuitive side, can go out into the world through barriers, through the earth, through great distances, and gather the information that we want, the answers, and bring them back in a very mysterious way through impressions, images, symbols, various ways of feelings, getting us to know what it's trying to tell us. Now, it causes the instrument to move, and these movements, by this pre-training code that we have already worked out, tell us what we want to know. Then we evaluate it with the active intellectual mind. This is the passive side, which is much more powerful in my estimation and knows more than the thinking mind. There's three parts of us: the knower, the thinker, and the doer. The knower knows, the thinker thinks, and the doer does. All right, let me explain about the mudras. I only learned of these maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but I have been using them in dowsing ever since, and they've helped me a great deal. The left hand is the passive receptive for me, and probably for most people. The right hand is the active and the sending. Now what I do is I try to tune in to the energies out there. This is an aid with the orometer or the pendulum, whatever dowsing instrument I may be using, to help get additional receptive energies that I can feel coming in affecting my autonomic nervous system, which makes the instrument move in my hand. So having received the energy and feeling good about it, I close my right hand to hold the energies in. Then I close this fist. This is called the mudra of power. And I cross them like the pharaohs used to do in ancient Egyptian times. They knew exactly what they were doing. Hold it in until I have the intuitive picture served up in my mind, and then I can release it.
The body arms antenna method is applied without need for an instrument. One slowly rotates the body, seeking the precise direction where the missing person, object, or thing in question may be encountered, continuing the 360-degree turn until intuitive guidance prompts the line of direction to be pursued. Here, horizontal pumping action sharpens sensitivity. Then, in a moment of reflection, one asks, "Am I online?" Until assured that the true course of action lies directly ahead. In this attitude, the receptive left hand seeks energy contact with some remote horizontal source. The palm may also be turned down for vertical attunement.
Scientific textbooks over the past 100 years or so have been telling us that all water on the earth and below ground comes from rainfall. Now, how can this be entirely so if at the headwaters of one of the world's great rivers, millions of acre-feet of water flow forth, and this water is not supported by higher mountain watershed? If this is true, then there must be another explanation, and that is primary water. Now, primary water, or juvenile water as is also known, comes from superheated steam down in enormous caverns below the Earth's surface. It is driven up through the earthquake faults, the fissures, and the vents, and eventually reaches the Earth's surface. We see it as hot springs and cold springs, geysers, and so on. Now, if one knows where to look for this water and believes that it is there, it lies in inexhaustible quantities for the taking.
The forked switch may be of green, limber wood cut from most any tree. Symmetry, size, and shape of wood are also important. Notice knuckles are turned inwards before gripping the branch ends. This technique allows the rising hands to place a no-cheat torque on the Y-shaped branch in the elevated, locating position. Nearing a source of moving underground water, the tip should dip lower and bob up and down. In passing over the water source too quickly, the switch's tip begins to pull back overhead toward the stream left behind, still pointing back until the field of attraction is weakened by distance. Here, wand and tip roll off right against a wall of energy. Pendulums of every possible description are used by dowsers of all ages. A pendulum is a weighted object suspended from a string or chain and found in a wide variety of weights, shapes, and materials. Upper left, a pair of swing rods used in locating buried pipes, old foundations, septic tanks, and so on. To their right, Cameron orometers, with a no longer popular black whalebone V-rod, extreme right.
Well, we're already demonstrating the fork, twig, or switch in this video, which are called or come under the classification of Y-rods. Here's the whalebone. It's a V-rod, and it is generally held in this fashion by dowsers, somewhat like this, and it pulls down over underground water. Then there's another instrument we call the L-rod. It's an L-shaped bent wire, nothing but a piece of straight clothesline or coat hanger wire, which is bent into this L shape. But it does have its limitations because when it moves sideways, it drags over the knuckles here, and sometimes the grip can be too strong, so it does not move freely. So we've invented an instrument which is much better, called the free-swinging swing rods. These are not gripped at all by the hands, and they are free to move in any way they want to sideways. When you take up the rods, you hold them in the down position like this to find the center of gravity so that they lead straight forward. Then you gradually bring them up until they're parallel with the horizon or the floor on which you stand. If you can even hold them a little above that parallel, you'll find more sensitivity. This is a secret to finding the right position for starting your swing rod movements. If you have the rods down too low, you've got too much gravity, too much inertia to overcome before they will work effectively for you. So your sensitivity lies in the higher movement of the rods up this way. If you don't have L rods or swing rods, just take a pair of coat hangers from your closet, hold them lightly in this manner. They should cross when you walk over underground pipes, or sometimes they will turn out. They're very primitive but effective dowsing instruments.
Notice how the swing rods begin to cross over as Bill approaches a pyramid. If a single swing rod is properly balanced above a pyramid's apex, it begins rotating freely, gradually gaining speed. Bill approaches a water pipe. Observe the swing rods crossing directly above the pipe. Then, as he backs away from the field of influence, the rods begin to uncross forward again. With the locked grip, knuckles are held close together to maintain stability. Next, Bill reapproaches the water pipe, showing that for some persons, the rods swing outward.
And then finally we have the wand. The wand is a straight piece of wire, again, or wood, without this L shape here. And that is your wand. That's all a wand is. Now the pendulum stands in a class by itself with the orometer. It has specific movements of oscillation to and fro, sideways, and is also a gyrating instrument, gyrating right or left. And there are many codes one can work out with a pendulum. They're easy to make and easy to acquire. It's a very useful and popular instrument.
An instrument can be made of the simplest materials. A spherical weight is preferred, but even a nut removed from a bolt tied to a piece of string will do. That's all you need to take the first step in pendulum dowsing. Depicted here is a carbon pointer suspended from a chain. By shortening the length of grip an inch or fraction with each start, the radius of rotation decreases, causing the speeds of gyration to increase. Experiment. Find the extension that serves you best. Dowsers in a hurry usually favor the shortest grip. Remember, the longer extension requires more time in the passive mode, as the pendulum must begin its work from the at-rest or still position. Swing the pendulum to and fro in the neutral position. Here it changes into a right spin, Bill's code for yes. Next, back to neutral in the to and fro position. It quickly changes into a left spin, meaning no. Then neutral again. Next, into a sideways oscillation, meaning don't know, possibly, question unclear, or try later. Next, from neutral again, the pendulum slips into a left diagonal, meaning negative conditional. Then, back to neutral, and into a right diagonal oscillation, meaning positive conditional.
If it goes leftward gyration, it means in this rotation, no. So now we have the neutral position, the uncertain, and here we have the right yes, and the left gyration, no. Now I've enhanced my code by the addition of two other movements of the pendulum. It can either be an oscillation running this way or this way, and sometimes it will make an oval instead of a straight oscillation. But in any case, the right movement this way, where it will not come around and say yes, means positive conditional. It means there are many elements in favor of this thing, but it isn't an exact yes. You've got to look further for other things you can do or change to give you a yes answer. Now, if it goes over to the left gyration in this manner here, then oscillation, I should say, this way, it means negative conditional. This means that there are many negative elements, but it won't go to no. It means if you could correct most or all of those negative elements, you could bring it around to yes yet. So usually if it's a negative element, unless I want it really very much, I'll let go of it and figure that's almost a no. Not quite a no, but just about a no. These are the way to enhance your pendulum code. All right, this is a passive method. The pendulum is held as still as possible, and I'm asking the question, an obvious question like, do I love my mother? And it should gyrate to the right without my physically moving it. I am not exerting any physical effort to cause the instrument to gyrate, and it says, yes, of course I do love my mother. That's the passive method, waiting for the instrument to lead you. Now then there is the active method, where you oscillate it physically to and fro, and I ask the question again, do I love my mother? And then finally the instrument goes into a yes. With the active method, you're always watching for a change in the movement of the pendulum to signal that the answer is coming through.
Suspend a pendulum while dangling a chain from the back of the hand. Starting in the passive mode, see if your pendulum will move while the unweighted chain remains still. Bill swings the pendulum to and fro in a field. When it changes direction, he follows.
All right, this is an upright pendulum because it gyrates above the level of the horizon. This and the gravity or beating wand, which is the same instrument really, operating below the horizon and which will beat up and down, are used for specialized detection in dowsing. Also, a directional instrument operates this way, following compass positions. Weighing is when the instrument goes up and down. Like with the orometer, for example, I want to know the depth of something, how far down it is underground. I go 1, 2, 3, 4 feet, say, or 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet, or 100 feet, 200 feet, 300 feet, or 1,000, 2,000, or 1 million, or 2 million, and so on. You run the series that you want. And then when the instrument bends over, then it tells you you've reached the level that you're looking for.
The original Cameron orometer is the best of the world's most basic and popularly used dowsing devices. It has the capability of 5 separate dowsing instruments, all combined into one super sensitive device. Mr. Cameron invented and tested more than 100 unique dowsing devices over a period of 22 years before he perfected the all-inclusive orometer in 1952. 35 years of subsequent experimentation have failed to improve the orometer. The secret of the orometer's ultra-sensitivity lies in its unique design. A tiny coil spring inside the handle counterbalances against the larger coil spring wand and weighted tip. The instrument displays 5 separate and necessary dowsing actions in any challenging situation. Never hold the orometer in this position. Here, the wand and tip are slanted too low for sensitive response. Be sure not to hold your index finger against the wire wand. This nullifies the delicate balancing action between the wand and the tiny coil spring mounted inside the handle. Balancing the wand and tip higher increases sensitivity. Note the most ideal high poise position for supersensitivity. Straightforward alignment with mudra is easily mastered with practice. The orometer bends upward, lifted by a rising energy field. Held in the slant position, the orometer bends off more easily when it meets a wall of energy. This scene depicts the overgrip, one of 3 distinct ways the orometer may be held, a physical and masculine approach to dowsing. Notice the side grasp. It has a neutral kind of feel. And finally, the passive but highly receptive undergrip. Least physical of all, Bill favors the relaxed undergrip feeling with thumb and index fingers extended. Bill's code for yes is a full right swingover. A pullover full left indicates a no answer. If wand and tip fail to break completely over to one side or the other, it means an uncertain situation. The orometer acts as 5 instruments in one. 1, the sidewise compass movement to find direction. 2, it bobs up and down to determine distances above or below ground. At 3, as an upright pendulum, wand and tip dance in a variety of ways above the horizon line. 4, slanting downward, it dips and sways as a gravity wand. 5, with tip suspended below, the orometer copies the acrobatics of a regular pendulum, viewed from another angle. the sidewise directional movement, then weighing up and down to determine heights and depths in numbers. Now the upright pendulum action, followed by the gravity wand's downward slant, oscillating, bobbing, swirling. And now broadening the code response by bending the tip down or back.
All right, when I receive a professional dowsing assignment, in this case, say locating underground water, I find out what the margins of the properties may be, and I start working as close to these margins as I can, slowly moving along, and I'm looking for crossings, water-bearing faults that will be crossing the property in who knows what manner. Now, in this particular situation, I'm coming along, and I finally come up to a crossing here, and this one happens to turn into a marking that I set up here. Now this marking here, I go to one side of the stream, the instrument bends off, then I walk over and find the other side of the stream, which in this case is 3 or 4 feet wide. Then I walk in and find line markers showing that it is coming diagonally in towards the center of the property. Now once I found that, these two marginal markers and the line markers inwardly tell me the direction of this flow of water going in this way. Then I continue on, and here I found another one here, so I mark it, but what I did in this case, I go over to and make the line marker first and walk back and check and make my marginal marker. Check this margin marker here and get my line marker here. Now I see the two are going to come inwardly, and there's going to be a crossing somewhere inside the property where I want it. Now what I do here, it comes into a V, is retrace my steps. Now as I'm following the line, I'm trying to make a straight line right into this site, this way, but there's a tendency sometimes to get offline. So what I do, I walk outside of it, and then I'll dowse inward to find it again, and the instrument will bend off. Now if I get too far this side, I'll go out and come back this way. So I always know that I've got it within these margins where I'm walking. Now when I get to the center where these two cross, I mark it.
Bill likes to begin his dowsing assignments with a meditation on the site, to sensitize himself to the higher vibrations lying within and around the field of search. Bill begins the dowsing quest for an underground water supply. He starts by pacing the property's perimeter, visualizing the possible movement of underground water, mentally repeating the question over in mind, is underground water to be found here? Then, with no response, Bill silently repeats the question, walking forward, awaiting a signal that he's come up against a screen of energy emanating upward from a subsurface stream. He always seeks moving underground water, for still water is often stagnant and of limited quantity. With tip poised high and question held clearly in mind according to a preset code, orometer contact is finally made. The pointer, pushed by the underground water's flow, bends off leftward. Bill retraces his steps to mark the stream's leading edge with a ribbon at the perimeter, then dowses for the stream crossing's opposite edge and flags it. Now, having retreated 10 yards back along the perimeter, Bill reapproaches the stream's leading edge. The orometer swings left on a line slanting inward. He drops a first line marker, then crosses over, dowses, and tags the stream's other side with a second line marker. Bill continues to dowse the perimeter for other subsurface streams and presently finds the leading edge of another crossing. It too flows inward along a sharp diagonal to the left, hopefully on a direct line that will intersect with the first stream. He drops another line marker and dowses this edge back to the perimeter, hangs a ribbon marker, then dowses for the stream's opposite edge, tagging it. Mentally calculating where the two water courses might merge, Bill traces this second stream edge toward the expected junction of underground waters. Notice how he drifts offline, first to the right, then back toward it, checking from both sides of the stream, staying on course, not allowing himself to be teased offline by minor water veins. Now, at the approximate junction Of the two underground streams pictured from above, they form the point of a V. Bill then dowses his way back along the leading edge of the first stream towards the perimeter, ever checking inward from both sides to be sure he doesn't wander off course. Just before arriving at the perimeter's edge, the leading edge, ribbon marker, Bill relocates the first stream's opposite side to recheck its approximate width. Feeling the push of flow, knowing the stream's width, direction, and depth helps him to estimate the possible volume of water that may be recovered.
Now when I get there, the first thing I do is I walk across this area. Maybe it's 2 or 3 feet across that I'll walk, sometimes it's more. Then I'll come back and I'll come check it from the other side, and I make the crossing. And then I'll go the other way, I'll go vertically, and I make it from both directions. I'm checking so that I'm going this way, coming back this way, I'm going this way, coming back this way. Now I am zoomed in on the center. I can also run diagonals, doing the same thing. And this way then, eventually I wind up with a pattern which should be the center of the well drilling site, and here's where I mark it with the stake.
Back at the V junction, Bill enters the zone of influence where underground streams meet. Dousing inward from 4 directions, the intense radiation of energies push the orometer's tip upward. If there's ever any doubt where the exact center lies, he may take extra diagonal entries from the corners inward. Then, once the site is pinpointed, he drives a stake into the idealized well drilling site.
Okay, when I'm trying to find out how far down it is to the underground water, the old foundation, the buried object or substance, or whatever it may be, I have to depth for it. Now, depthing is done in this way. As I mentioned before, we have 1, 2 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet, or so on, or we can go 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet, 40 feet. Now, when the instrument bends off, that tells me that I have reached the maximum point, and therefore I can go back and split that. Here's the way I do it. When I douse for underground water, many wells are drilled more than 200 feet, so it takes a long time to go 1 foot at a time. So what I do, I go in tens of feet. So I go 10, 20, 30, 40, and let's say it's 90 feet, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and then the instrument will bend off, either to right or the left. Now, if it was 93 feet, I go back and I say, is it 90 feet? And the instrument will bend off, yes. All right, is it 91, 92, 93, and it'll bend off. So that should be the distance down to the top of the water. Now, I'm getting ready to douse an existing well. This is a good way to practice so that you can learn and get confidence. Go to an existing well, douse it, try to determine the depth of it, and then ask those who know from the well log or who own the well how far it is down to the water. Now, don't be disappointed if you fail the first time or second time. Keep working at it. You'll become quite proficient at it. All right? 10, 20, 30. So I hold my hand down in this position. This is the mudra or hand position for vertical depthing.
Bill traces a meandering underground stream through a citrus orchard. In learning to visualize an underground stream, merely observe the behavior of water moving in stream beds above ground. The wand can be a straight branch of limber green wood cut from most any tree. Gripped at the thinnest end while bending, the limb forms an elongated L shape with a thick end lying forward at the tip. This primitive dowsing device serves 4 distinct functions. 1, as a wand. 2, it can bob for numbers or alphabet in series. 3, it is a directional finding instrument. And 4, an upright pendulum.
Well, with map dowsing, you must coordinate the hands with the mind and the instruments you're working with. Keep your feet flat on the floor, and when you place your hands down, keep them also flat. Don't cross your legs or don't cross your arms if at all possible.
Bill now affinitizes himself with the map and the missing person in 3 steps. 1, physically bonding with it by applying moisture from his tongue. 2, by bringing the pendulum in direct contact with the chart to establish sympathetic vibrations between the map, pendulum, and himself. 3, uniting the palms of both hands with the map to complete the desired energy circuit before dowsing work begins. Bill circles the area from which Jane Doe had vanished. Next, posing this question in mind, in which direction did Jane Doe leave L.A., he lays down a ballpoint pen to serve as a directional locator. Now, slowly rotating the pen clockwise, he oscillates the pendulum to and fro in the neutral position. Meanwhile, he watches for the pendulum's movement to change, and when this occurs, he immediately notes the pointer's exact direction, telling him that Jane Doe may have proceeded northward on a highway out of Los Angeles. Bill now uses the ballpoint pen as a tracing pointer. The pendulum is returned to the neutral position, swinging to and fro, that is, away from and toward his body. He awaits change in the pendulum's movement, from direct oscillation to rotation. With pointer held in his left hand, Bill continues to trace the missing person's journey north, probably by auto from Los Angeles, where the pendulum begins to change its swing from back and forth into a right gyration. The pointer now centers on the city of Santa Barbara, some 100 miles north of Los Angeles. Although the pointer is ideal for tracing a line or pathway, it is a slow and tedious process. To save time, Bill uses a ruler which covers all area before it in one vertical sweep upward. He again asks, "Is Jane Doe here?" Presently, the pendulum's movement changes. When the ruler has reached a line of influence, Bill draws this line along the ruler's leading edge. He's now discovered the first crossing, possibly leading to the location where Jane Doe might be found. Now the ruler sweeps slowly to the right, in search of an exact crossing. Then, when the intersection is found, he scribes a vertical line along the straight edge, completes the crossing, and circles the area. Next, Bill makes diagonal sweeps with a smaller ruler from the 4 corners inward. Additional crossing lines are then drawn to help zoom in on our missing person, Miss Jane Doe. It's also good to reapproach with the straight edge coming back from the opposite direction for verification, scribing additional lines in the process. Eventually, with the help of enlarged maps, one may select the immediate zone where the most crossings appear and hopefully the final breakthrough to solving the mystery. Sometimes, the ruler won't slide smoothly over a map's wrinkles and folds. To overcome this distraction, you can use a roller. even an ordinary kitchen rolling pin.
Here's a U.S. Geological Survey map. These little lines in here that's showing the contours of the land are in 50-foot contours, 50 feet apart. Now, if I make a pencil dot on one of these when I'm map dowsing, my pencil dot could almost be 50 or 40 feet wide. Can you imagine somebody's looking for treasure or something, digging? They would have to excavate half the countryside to try to find what they're looking for. So the best thing I do when I zoom in on an area, then I have the map enlarged. Now notice how these contours become more visible. And then if I were to zoom in on a point like here, I may have that side again enlarged. And I'll douse that, and then enlarge that and douse it again until we can pinpoint it right down to the narrowest point. All right, let's consider the subject of psychometry for a moment. This is a very important distinction because with psychometry, the object is not at a distance. It is in your hand.
Bill receives a wristwatch and with no prior information places it between his palm, closes his eyes, and visualizes inwardly a blank TV screen, awaiting the appearance of persons, places, scenes, or symbols. The watch or object can also be held over one's heart or brow for fine-tuning. Bill then begins to describe images as they appear on the inner screen of his mind.
We know that a crystal, a tiny crystal, can hold thousands of bits of information. With psychometry, we know that even a stone can contain information about its environment and its history, and possibly episodes related to that history. I have seen some amazing demonstrations of psychometry where people, given an object they had never seen or touched before, holding it in their hand in a certain fashion and gathering information and giving it out, which was later verified by archaeological research and other sources. So psychometry is the opposite of dowsing in one sense, that you have the object in your hand. Now, with dowsing, we will look for the object at a distance, but it works either way because it's like radio. There's broadcast and reception. Well, dowsers have located some marvelous wells through the years. The late Vern Cameron located some big oil fields in Australia. Now here's a chart showing the ground level here. These are the rays that are coming up from a large oil deposit below ground. As we approach the oil source here, the instrument tends to want to gyrate in this manner. Now the orometer works much better in the gravity position. As I get closer to the deposit of oil, the instrument should spin faster. And this way then I know that I'm over the heaviest concentration of the oil. As I move away from it, it slows down. Now if the instrument does not spin with any rapidity over this site, then it might just be gas, because gas sends up less spiraling energy. So a very mysterious thing happens with oil. It wants to spiral, whereas rays from water are more vertical and horizontal, move in straight lines.
Bill says that a good way to start to improve one's skill is by dowsing an existing oil well. Having approached the rig from a distance, with pendulum swinging to and fro, the instrument begins to rotate clockwise or into a right gyration. But remember, the pendulum near oil may gyrate either way. Nearer to the oil pool, lying at great depths below ground, the pendulum's gyrations increase in speed, spinning, spinning, spinning ever faster. In a hurry, use a stopwatch to depth for oil, thousands of feet below ground. Vern Cameron claimed that if the petroleometer stops rotating with the handbrake lightly applied, it may likely be gas. If it keeps spinning anyway, it could be oil. The petroleometer near oil may gyrate either way. Racing through the energy field before the instrument can respond and bend off is like trying to read signs from the window of a speeding train. Overcaution, physical tenseness, and lack of faith all defeat the dowsing effort.
And there are really more, but these are the 6 dominant types. The first is the instinctive. These people are very much in touch with nature and their inner feelings. I've seen them with chills, sweating, nausea, tingles, even fainting over the suspected site. In fact, a young man whom I was tutoring in the field years ago became nauseated, and at one time he threw up on the site. And I said, drill there, and we brought in one of the biggest wells in the area. Now, the physical dowser tends sometimes to be too physical and strong-arms the instrument. And they're very materialistic in their approach, and they rely heavily upon the instruments. And they plod along, but they're very successful, both these categories. The third is the emotional. Women must be numbered among the most in these, for women are more in touch with their feelings. I've seen women look sad, even weep, and some were euphoric or even giddy. And the mental range, here's a crafty guy. He wants to know everything he can know about the site before he goes out. He goes to the government agencies, he gets U.S. Geological Survey maps, he gets mining information, well logs from flood control. Every bit of information will help him in the locating work. The next in the spirit world, these are people who believe that they have a guide or an angel. Some of them even say, and possibly it's true because they are very good, that they can leave their body, or a part of them can leave their body, and go out to the suspected site, get the information, and bring it back. Now, this is all well and good. Now we have the intuitional type, and I number myself among this category here. I don't want to know anything about the site before I get there. As little as possible, as opposed to the mental dowser who wants to know everything. I don't want to know anything. I want to trust my intuition to give me the information that I really want. Then later I seek validation, and I'm anxious, very eager to see the information that's presented, and if it's right, of course, it gives me confidence. That's what keeps me going on. All of these categories, you will find dowsers who are very good and proficient at the trade. Some have more or one of these traits, but all in all, this is what makes dowsing work. Dowsing has so enriched my life, increased my awareness, and my trust for the intuition. A most extraordinary place, available to us all. It is a place and source of knowing, beyond the limitations, certainly, of my puny intellect and the five senses. So it's my fondest wish to share with you 64 years of combined dowsing professional experience and the hard-won secrets discovered by the late Vern Cameron and myself, so that you too may enjoy the discoveries of dowsing.
This is an ancient Chinese feng shui compass. Feng shui means wind and water. There are similarities between feng shui and dowsing. The fiery red bird lies southward, with the yin, feminine white tiger hill westward, the yang, masculine azure dragon east, and, from behind, the turtle mountain north. Again, the southward, ever mysterious heavenly pool. One may feel a welcome push of energy while walking uphill, tracing the curving dragon line. The air is sweet and exhilarating, and the climb effortless. If one traces the spine of the azure dragon, a specific course along the ridge of a hill, one may feel a continuous thrust of energy. In this scene, the push from behind is actually shoving Bill in a headlong rush downhill. Way off on the far ridge, seen only as a tiny moving speck, a happy dowser runs wildly downslope toward a heavenly pool. Bill approaches Davina's astral form from outside inward. Once the aura's immediate energy field is encountered, its margin is traced in an oval shape, wider at the top. A subject's mental polarity may be dowsed hand on head as the pendulum held away begins to gyrate. Left rotation indicates feminine intuitional. One may also dowse with the same result by instead placing a hand on the subject's shoulder. The pendulum then begins to spin directly overhead.
Okay, we've all heard about ESP. ESP, extrasensory perception. It's not extra at all. It's extended sensory perception, ESP. Let me illustrate. We know that there are people who can see at a distance, people who can hear without their ears, and people who can touch at distance without actually placing their hand on the physical object. Now, the names for these are clairvoyance for sight, extended sight, clairaudience for extended hearing, and clairsentience for extended touching. I'll give you another illustration. If I were given a 4-foot stick and I hold this in my hand and I'm blindfolded and I'm directed towards a wall, I can tell you when I get to that wall and how far away it is without ever physically touching that wall. How can I do it? Because I can feel the vibration coming through the stick and I can hear the sound of it striking the wall. And I know the length of the stick to be 4 feet. So that's how I know, blindfolded, without touching the wall. To carry it one step further now, I can come up to the wall with a dowsing instrument, blindfolded or otherwise, and if everything is working properly, I know the wall is there, and I know when I'm 4 feet from the wall before I get to it with a dowsing instrument. You throw down the stick. That's what dowsing is. You do not need to have that extra help.
The Cameron aurimeter outlines a small waveform puff of energy emanating over an ordinary glass of tap water. Now, placing his hands over the liquid in prayer, Bill asks that the water be blessed and thus purified. Then, within a matter of seconds, an ever-increasing balloon-shaped bubble of energy begins to expand above the water's surface. The late Vern Cameron called this particular emanation thought form energy, similar to the loving force produced after one has prayed over a plant to make it grow better. Bill now dowses a selection of Brazilian quartz crystals with the aurimeter. He holds a quartz crystal egg witness in his hand to enhance dowsing sensitivity by means of sympathetic vibrations. These quartz pieces are not to be confused with lead crystal made of glass and useless in this test. Glass is nearly energy dead when dowsed. No, these are natural quartz crystals alive with energy. Scientific instruments readily measure their vibratory and piezoelectric qualities. Wave fronts emanating from various shaped crystals are positively unique, but the strange life force fields created when 2 or more crystals are positioned close together are a dowsing delight. Crystal pattern arrangements may be changed for surprising results. Spherical shape wave energies from crystal balls seem to imitate the energy behavior of Earth, revealing both north and south poles on tilted axis, and an equator running round their circumference. Bill douses the purity of strawberries lying in the blue witness dish. He slides a ballpoint pen along an intensity scale measured in units of 5 from 1 to 100. The pendulum swings to and fro until it begins to gyrate leftward, at which time the sliding pen has reached 80% on the scale. According to Bill's standards, the strawberries are barely edible. One may douse with the pendulum held directly over the chakra or with the left palm held above the energy center while the pendulum rotates off scale away from the body.
Well, that's about it for now. It's been an extreme pleasure being with you. It's been a joy going through these various aspects of dowsing. I hope you found new horizons, new ways of looking at things. I think you'll find that it will open your intuition if you go on with it, as it has for me through the years. I've never met a bored dowser in my life. Life will have new meaning for you if you stay with dowsing. It is a lot of fun. Look forward to it. Go to it.